you're going to feel incredible, and you can take that leadership role in your lane or with your girls. But like sometimes it's like you just need to make it through a practice, and that's okay. Like, so I just tell them, I'm like, set an intention. Like, what, maybe you just had a total crappy test and like you're really upset about it. Like, just get through this, So it never stops.
Yeah.
I learned that mantra never stops.
No, it never does. And it goes back to what I always say, like, having a coach is important, right? Whether it's life, business, sports, whatever, is important. But having that peer to peer relationship is also important, right? Leaning on someone that's going through it the same that you are is important. And then I always say, be a coach to someone else, right? There's going to be times where, maybe one of your girls is feeling down and another girl comes and shows up and they're going to coach them for that moment or for that day.
Yeah.
And, that's just so important. And, it's funny. That's why I always like going back and listening to everyone's stories before real estate, because there's so many things that have happened in your life that I'm sure play a huge impact, in your business, business.
Gosh. Like,
so
yeah, go ahead.
No, go.
You were asking about the recruiting process too. And it's funny. I'm sorry, I'm closing my emails. I probably should have done that before. The recruiting process too. I mean, that was an interesting journey. And like I said, my parents were instrumental probably in the longevity of me doing a sport for myself. Like I never felt like I was doing it for them, but holy cow, like we had no idea. We had zero idea what was going on. And now it's even more intense and starts earlier and all those things. But yeah, I was looking at, I was allowed 5 recruiting trips. And so the ones I took, I went to Stanford, Texas, Auburn, Arizona, and Michigan. And it's funny, I chose like the coldest, grayest place. And, walking to the pool at 5:30 in the morning probably would have been a lot better in Arizona. But that's okay. It was really interesting at a young age to, have to navigate somebody telling you maybe what they just want you to hear. I mean, you're 17 and we want you. And it's very, you get kind of sucked into that. But I remember having a conversation with one of my coaches he swam at Texas, and now he's actually the coach at Yale. And he just said, he goes, stop worrying so much about it. You're just going to figure out which color looks the best on you. And that's where you're going to go. I'm like, you went to Texas. Like you thought burnt orange was the best color. But he was joking, but he was like, you just need to take that moment and just kind of think like, where did you see yourself? Like, like going to class and, outside of this like whole, dog and pony show that they're giving you, like, where do you feel like yourself? And it was, a lot of soul searching. And I think we have to do that at a lot of different moments in our lives. But that one, I was like, oh my God. And then having to tell people no. I mean, it's like multiple offers. It's like, I got to tell one person no, to tell 4 people no. It was great though. Swimming's a small world, and, you had support even when you weren't going to their school. But yeah, learned a lot.
You thought maize and blue looked the best, huh?
I know. I mean, gosh, our friends in Columbus are going to be like, they're not going to listen to anymore. They just turned us off.
They just turned it off. Exactly. So you graduate college, you go to Chicago, right? You're doing, you said ad agencies type stuff, right?
Yeah.
Kind of lead me up from Chicago to getting into real estate.
Yeah. So, to describe the ad world in, a nutshell, my responsibility was, like the middle of the wheel. And then I had all these spokes. So it might be like a creative director or a strategist or producer or whatever. They were kind of all, their info fed into me. And then I had to manage the client, which was it was awesome. I mean, the pace was crazy. It was chaotic. And they were big brands we were working on. I mean, my first client was General Motors. So I was like in Detroit every week. And that was just crazy. I mean, that whole world of GM and how they've transformed. I mean, I was doing that in the late 90s when they still had huge fleets of cars. the brand I worked on doesn't even exist anymore, which was really interesting. But when you do a deep dive like that, not only into just like the branding, it's like you have to understand their whole business.
Yeah.
So really a cool way to understand what's going on in a company, and then you have to kind of help um, bring, what does their identity mean to any consumer. So I did that, and I also worked on Hallmark, which the card business. I mean, now people don't probably even write it. Well, we are. We're going to bring
Yeah.
the card business
We're
back.
bringing it back.
Yeah, but Hallmark was so. I mean, their commercials used to just be like. They were famous for making people cry, so that was an emotional one on the other end of the spectrum. But
Kim's just crying every day as she's working.
day, every day. It was cool. We did an Olympic sponsorship with Hallmark. And so I was out at the Utah when the Olympics 2002, when they were in Salt Lake. I was there for 6 weeks. It was the most incredible job experience I've probably had. It was unbelievable from start to end. Learned so much, met so many amazing people. Oh my gosh. I mean, that's a
That's
whole,
awesome.
whole other thing. But so getting to Columbus, I mean, I moved here and I started at another ad agency here, and it was great, but I was not really like. I mean, I liked the people that were around me, but the day to day, I was not in love with. And
Yeah.
so when I moved to Columbus, I gave it a year, and I was moving because there was a guy I was dating, and I was like, whatever, let's just see where this goes, and that ended abruptly, which is funny because I obviously met my husband, and I'm still here.
Yeah.
Um, but the notion of like the actual business of what I was doing, I just wasn't as into. Like I missed that consumer facing discussion. Like how are consumers, what are they thinking? Like what are their purchase decisions? Like all of this. I mean, that's what I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So I had a friend stop me in the ad agency at the time, and she literally had a pink sheet of paper, and she's like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, I'm getting fired. I'm getting fired right now. Like a pink slip for real. And she was like, no, this is the name of a headhunter. And they called me, and they're looking for someone. I think you need to call him. And so at the time, I was actually like kind of one foot out the door in Columbus. I was talking with another agency in Dallas. I was talking with Northwestern about maybe coaching. I was all over the place. But fundamentally in my core, I was like, I'm not sure I have it in me to like go start in another city again. So I take this lunch meeting, and it was a developer who was starting a downtown residential building. And this is in 2003. Nobody's living downtown yet. No one. And so I was like, okay, like this is interesting. So in the lunch interview, I said, if you want a real estate agent, I'm not your girl. I don't want to be a real estate agent. And he was like, tink. And that's got me the job. Like, no joke, it got me the job because he, at the time, I think wanted somebody totally focused on his project.
Yeah.
And so it was the Buggy Works building. Now it's next to, the amazing Huntington Park. And now it's anchored by lower.com. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like, it's amazing down there. But when I started selling that, I mean, you had to, like, you would come up a fire escape to get up to my office. There was like the lights didn't continue on. Like it was not the pretty side of Nationwide at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but he wanted somebody who could like share his vision and get people to understand his vision. And it was awesome. So that was my entry into real estate. And Kyle Katz was a developer, and I mean, we were like 4 people in this office pulling off this project. And he brought me into the fold. I mean, I went to the Metropolitan Club lunches with him, which CMC is an awesome organization in Columbus. Like you just meet a lot of leaders, and each month it was like the meeting was about something different. But I started to learn how things in Columbus happen. Like maybe they happen slow, maybe they happen fast, but I started to understand how that happens, and I was
Yeah.
really interested in that. So at the end of that project, I kind of was more, I would say, like in construction management. And I didn't love that side so much. I was like sitting in sub meetings, calling out mistakes. Like that was not
Yeah.
my bread and butter for sure. So I went back into advertising for a little bit. Then another developer contacted me for a project they wanted to do in the short north. And I wasn't even looking. I was totally happy in my job. And it was actually somebody who bought at Buggy Works, had a meeting with these guys that were starting this project and said, well, if you need somebody to sell it, you have to talk to Kim. And so they found me, and I had a lunch with them and said, like, if you want me, this is how I would want it to work. And they were like, okay. And I said, okay, I have to quit. So that was spring of '08. So, everything's feeling great.
Exciting
Spring of
times
'08.
then.
Oh my God, by fall of '08, it was a very different story.
Yeah.
So, but,
Were
I
you
think
were
that,
you licensed
yeah,
at that point? Or when did you get
no.
your no, okay, this is still
So,
before even okay.
yeah, so I think because I was working directly for the developer, I
Yeah,
did not have to be licensed. I was just a sales associate.
right, right.
So, I mean, they hung on to me until 2010, and then I was just straight overhead. I was just waiting for that conversation. So I went to Hondros and got it done in a month. I was like, this is what I want to do. I think this is what I should be doing. I had my first child at the time. And so I just couldn't quite see myself, as much as I loved the environment of the ad agency world. I was a bit of an addict to it.
Yeah,
I was like a complete workaholic and wanted to climb the ladder again. I wanted to not crawl across the room, but like run across the room.
yeah,
And that was fine. But now I'm a mom, and like that's not going to work. And getting on a flight at the last minute to go meet with clients and that kind of pace, I was like, just I think that chapter was just done at the
yeah,
time. Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, so I signed on with Tech and Rough. I mean, I appreciate them so much. I met them way back in my Buggy Works days. They would bring clients in, and I would, I feel like we got to know each other from just me doing my pitches to their clients.
yeah.
But it was a great way into real estate. I mean, I got to be a sponge with people who had they're leaders in this industry, and
Mhm.
big volume. And I like to go into the office and just like absorb,
Yeah.
if I wasn't busy. But that was kind of my way in.
So getting licensed, you said that was 2010,
Mhm.
right? Okay,
Yeah.
so 2010, you got a taste of some sales, for the developer. You got some taste of the back end side of actually doing the development.
Yeah.
Um, when you got in, you went full 100% commission based.